Thank you for coming to this video today. Thank you for signing up for the course, Social Work with Victims in Abuse. What I want to talk about right now is grooming. So grooming could be thought of in lots and lots of different ways. So I'm going to kind of riff around and some of it, what I say now that we're on video number 16, I think, or 17, something like that. Of course, we're going to have overlaps, and you may think, oh, she talked about this in video 6. Well, some things are well worth saying a second or third time, but also in my experience as a teacher, sometimes I may have mentioned something in September of our semester, and you hear it differently, more richly, more potently when we start talking about it in November, because you've had those prerequisite chunks of information added to your buffet of knowledge and wisdom. So, grooming. Grooming is something that you could think of as beginning in a very subtle way, going forward, intensifying, deepening, and sometimes becoming the normal for the victim. So I know you probably all have heard about grooming, but I want to talk about it just in case you haven't reflected on it for a while, or in case there's some people in the room who haven't heard of this. So a perpetrator, let's say for childhood sexual abuse, will, one, find a victim or a potential victim who has limited self-esteem, limited access to supports and resources, who already has been stigmatized, so that if they go and tell, people will say, oh, that kid's always making up stories, that kid's always lying, or that kid comes from an alcoholic family, you can't really trust what they're saying, or that kid, his mother has mental health issues, so, you know. So the groomer will often pick someone who is lush for being victimized. Second, many times one of the 1,001 big lies out there in the world is, one day a perpetrator had a feeling and then they raped someone or they sexually abused someone, just that one day. No. The vast majority of the time, the perpetrator has a target in mind or multiple targets in mind and grooms the situation, comes to the victim over months or even over years. Sometimes the perpetrator will pick a woman who already has kids, and he will charm and chat with the mom and tell the mom, I care about you, can I get you some groceries, I think I love you, could we go to a camp for the weekend, just you and me? Eventually he says, well, why don't you bring your kids with you the next time we go camping? He's been buying gifts for the kids, building trust with the kids. The kids are very emotionally needy because they live in a single mom household, let's say, where mom is very busy or mom has few resources to buy them treats and gifts. And the kids have a longing. They have a natural urge to attach. The perpetrator uses that for his advantage. He's grooming the mom. At some point he may say to the mom, well, you know, I really like your daughter a lot, but I worry about her because she lies sometimes. Yesterday she lied to me about blank blank. I had $10 on the table and I know she was the only one who went in the kitchen and then the money was gone. So, you know, I just wanted to say that to you about your little girl. She's a thief, eh? Right? So that may not be true at all, but the mom, because he said to her, he loves her and he cares about her and the kids, she believes him. In the movie Precious, you can see how vulnerable Precious and her kids are, and they're very deeply starving for affection and affirmation. So the perpetrator may choose to do this over months or years. I wish you to reflect on that. Thinking about spousal abuse, where the man is abusing his wife or girlfriend, he may, again, choose a girl or woman who has a few friends, not a lot of self-esteem, doesn't feel excellent and magnificent at anything, maybe, you know, sucks at school, sucks at sports, isn't extraordinarily beautiful, doesn't feel about herself that she's special. He teaches her that he's the only one who sees how special she is. He teaches her that if she hangs out with him, her future will be better. He'll introduce her to people who might help with her career, who might help her do better in her life. We know sometimes he'll give her drugs or alcohol and get her hooked on these things. So this could be a week or a month or a year, and then he says to her, well, if you didn't have me in your life, you'd be nothing but a failure. I'm the only one who could love someone like you. So you see how he's made her attached to him, bond to him. Then he diminishes her worth, which puts her in a situation eventually where she feels, I have no friends, I have no one who believes in me, he's the only one who'd love me, I'm such a fat pig, I'm so ugly, I'm so shitty and bad, I'm so stupid, but at least he loves me. Sometimes he hits me, but that's only when I don't listen to him and follow his directions. Eventually, she slides into this dark, sad, isolated place. Why is that important to reflect on? Because if you can interrupt the grooming process, yay. If you can enlighten all women and girls on planet Earth about the grooming process, yay. You can also help her to reflect on how did she get to be in this place. You can help the people around her realize the situation, the story, her life, her relationship, that grooming dynamic is going on. Because what's one of the other 1,001 big lies? If she didn't like being slapped around, she wouldn't stay with him. She would leave. In her mind, she may be thinking, well, where would I go? I don't have any friends who'll take me in. I don't have any money to take care of myself. I don't have first and last month's rent. Plus, he didn't mean to hit me. He just lost control of himself again. And we know there's that kind of cycle often where the perpetrator beats her up, or beats up her dog, or beats up her kid, or beats up the kitchen and throws things around. Then the next morning or the next day he says, I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't mean it. I'll be better. Again, he's grooming her that she overreacts to a situation. And it only happens 3 or 4 times a year. And then the next year it happens 6 times. And the next year it happens 12 times, and 50 times, and 80 times. So think of the word grooming as 1, it can be longitudinal. 2, it can be the multidimensional and diverse. 3, it can be the mom and her kids, and the neighbors, and the parish, and the teachers at school. So they don't just groom the primary victim or the secondary victim, they groom the tertiary victim. So for example, to say the little girl tells her mom, he's been touching me in bad ways, the mom says, come on, he told me we were going to lie about that. He told me that you stole the $10 off the kitchen table. He told me that you were going to say he's been touching you, but you just made that up because you want to discredit him so that you can keep on being a thief and a liar. Because that's who you are, little girl. You're a thief and a liar. He may have already told the people at school, the teachers, I'm a little worried about this girl, you know, she lies and steals, so be careful with her in the classroom. Don't leave your purse anywhere near her. You can't trust her, you can't believe the things she says. So, the grooming in relationships. I want to also put in there a little bit about the whole thing about male socialization, about what we said in an earlier video, about males are often socialized in the mainstream world still today, that they should be stronger, smarter, taller, wiser, more in control, that they are entitled to judge us, they are authorized to assess and define situations and people. They are entitled to rank order who's in the family or who's in the school or who's around us. They are often entitled to look at girls. We were saying earlier, do you want to say some of that stuff that happened to you earlier in life?
Or just that, like, there's that, like, the male gaze, that when you're young, you'll have men approach you, and regardless of whether or not you acknowledge them in any sort of way, like, not look at them, keep walking, and don't even acknowledge that they've contacted or tried to get your attention, and they'll say sexual things like, oh, like, can't wait till you pass by me later, or like, you look really hot, or can't wait until you're of age, or something along those lines, where you feel really like sexualized and uncomfortable and like you didn't ask.
Right, and they feel often authorized and entitled.
And like they want you to say thank you. Like as a 12-year-old, the last thing that I want is you, and especially not sex. Boys still have cooties at that point. And the last thing that I want is you, but he still expected you to say thank you. Like as if him recognizing that you could be a sexual being is supposed to be something that's great.
He's privileged you with his assessment of your body.
Exactly.
A total stranger on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
A total stranger on the sidewalk. That, we framed that just now about youth, but I want to say out loud that I'm almost 60. When I'm out gardening in my little yard, my yard is on a road, a highway where cars pass by all the time, and I'll be digging up dandelion roots, and maybe 5 times during the summer, someone will yell out as I'm bent over, hey baby, like your ass, or hey, you could blow me later, things like this, where I think, where is this coming from in the male mind? When has there ever on planet Earth where a woman would turn around and say, oh yes, let me blow you. Just pull over here so I can give you, oh total stranger, a blowjob, because that's what I always intend when I'm plucking dandelions out of my yard. I'm actually wishing to give a blowjob to a stranger. Where did they get that idea? But he may be, in my opinion, in the car showing off to the other males in the car that he can say these kind of things. Or it may be that it means nothing to him.
And he just wants to see your reaction, to make you uncomfortable.
To squish, to put some kind of like, I'm better than you in that split second. So, but they're also at the same time, that whole dynamic is grooming the world, that women learn to contain, pull in, keep your eyes down, don't go looking for trouble. Because, for example, if I turned around and I said, come over here, you son of a bitch, and let me kick your face in.
That's
not going to go over well. No, right? It probably they'd keep driving too. But the idea that males are entitled to assess, judge, set perimeters of the relationship and the moment, and hierarchize all women's body parts. Total strangers feel authorized to do that. That is still happening to me at age 60. So what is that about, right?
Yeah, it started when I was super young, and it goes until now.
You might be 60 and doing dandelion work, and some guy might drive by and say that to you.
And
how are they authorized?
They aren't.
But they're grooming the world. It's a part of the world to say, oh woman, oh anyone who looks to be a woman person, we, oh male heterosexual people, are authorized and entitled to diminish you. Don't take up space. Don't exist in the world thinking you could be anything or anyone you want, because we didn't give you permission to do that.
But our identification of you as a sexual object is super important and should be vocalized, because we're male and super important, and our opinion is the only one that matters.
Yes. So taking what we've just described there, that's very macro, what I was just describing and sharing, but we also want to take that to another level. A woman who has been abused as a child or anywhere in her life, and she's outside gardening and that happens, she could suddenly have flashbacks. She could feel triggered by that. She could feel sad and diminished. She could want to go back in the house and have a bottle of wine and eat 12 donuts, or whatever her ways are to try and self-soothe, self-comfort, or push down those memories or feelings. So I wanted to say that. Another thing I wanted to say around grooming, implicit, we've said this, is continuums. All of these words that we use, I wish you to not have binaries in your mind, like toggle switches of yes, no, good, bad, winner, loser, victim, perpetrator. I wish you to see all of this on continuums. Try and get rid of all the toggle switches in your mind and binaries and reflect on continuums. That guy who yells at me while I'm gardening, I live alone. I'm all alone now in my home. I might be gardening at 9 at night, 10 at night. Why shouldn't I? There's lights coming from the house. I should be entitled to
be able to work in my garden.
Weed in my garden, pluck the clovers and pluck the dandelions. I should be entitled to feel luxuriously large and safe and bold and happy and in my own head plucking dandelions in my yard. I should not have to feel, oh my God, it's dark, I better get in the house. Or, oh my God, what if that car comes back around and they get out of the car and try to harm me? I should never have that cross my mind. But it's part of how in a patriarchal world we've been socialized to feel women don't belong in public space unless men give you permission to do so. And or you should always have a man with you to protect you. And tragically, sometimes that is a true fact. As a woman, if you're a woman alone on the street at night and you're just headed from point A to B, you are more likely to be victimized or have someone even verbally comment versus if I was with my 6'2", 220-pound husband. If my husband and I were walking on the street, it's very unlikely a car would drive by and yelled at.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely. Because they're like, oh, that's a woman with a man. She's claimed, she's owned. But if you're alone,
or
you're a target.
Another female friend.
You're a target. You're a loose woman in the world. You've been loosened from the control of patriarchy and ownership. Therefore, another man can say things to you. So think of all of these imbalances and traumas as in continuums. So sexual abuse is not necessarily like yes or no. It's a continuum. It's a type of abuse, an emotional abuse, a verbal abuse, for a total stranger to comment. You're at the bus stop waiting for the bus, and some guy starts talking to you about your breasts, right? I would say most women, if not all women, somewhere in their life have had that happen, if not had it happen 100 times.
Yeah, some part of your body. Yeah, either your breast, your ass,
You've got a pretty smile. They're on a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had on all kinds of levels. Let's say ordinary interactions with ordinary guys in an ordinary office setting, feel entitled to comment on my body, or that's oh, today you must have had a hard time this morning. I see you're not wearing makeup, which suggests I should be wearing makeup, and that he's entitled to comment on me. I've heard the idea of, would he say that to another male? Would he look at another equal colleague and say to the colleague, oh, you must have had a hard time this morning. I see you haven't combed your hair.
Yeah.
Probably never in his life has he.
Your beard's a little longer. Are you doing okay?
Yeah. Right? These would be things that a male would almost never because he'd be a heterosexual mainstream man would be cautious to say in case he got labeled as gay or invasive. Because the other guy might turn to him and say, that's not your fucking business, asshole.
Yeah, because he's another man, he's enabled to stand his ground.
Yeah.
Like, he's allowed to fight back, but because we're women, we're not allowed to.
Right. So, think about grooming of situations and individuals. Don't think of grooming as something that only happens over a 1-week period, or it only on the micro level of grooming the child. The person is grooming often the whole story, the whole situation, the whole neighborhood. Catholic priests were grooming the whole parish. They were grooming sometimes the whole community, and they stood up for each other in their grooming over 100 years over planet Earth, the ones who were pedophiles. So there's my little commentary on grooming. I want to add just one more thing.
Just on that.
That's something?
At least 222 coaches who were involved in amateur sports in Canada have been convicted of sexual offenses in the past 20 years, involving more than 600 victims under the age of 18.
There you go.
This was from 2019.
There you go. So in all of those stories, I would predict that all kinds of grooming happened. It's very, I would say, statistically less common where an adult male, total stranger, grabs a child and sexually abuses them. Statistically, that's not that common. 80% of the time or more, the people who hurt us are someone we've known, someone we've known maybe for a long time, someone who knows our family and our whole network. It's statistically way less common is a total stranger.
Yeah, 1 in 10 children in Canada will be sexually victimized before they turn 18, and the vast majority of those cases, the offender is known to the child in some way.
There you go. There you go. So the whole grooming thing. Now I'm going to come at grooming from a kind of different angle. Many times, let's say the moms, and I'm being stereotypical to some extent, in general, women who are poor, and we talked before about poverty of time, poverty of money, poverty of power, poverty of resources, poverty of hope and energy and good health, all that stuff. Our wide world, when women get paid less, when they can't afford to live independently, when they can't afford to pay their rent first month, last month, and have money in the bank, it grooms us to be more vulnerable, more accepting of male privilege, more likely to tolerate certain situations. So, in this book here on valuing care work, it talks about how the care work that women do, all the care work. If I looked at the last year of my life, and I'm going to just use that as an example, but I think it's pretty boring in that my life, I was caring for my sick and dying husband. I care for the stray cats in our yard. Every night I feed them and put fresh water for them. I care for 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 students in some emotional support way that's a little on the edge of my job description or off the corner of my table. I feed the birds outside and I clean the bird feeders. I'm involved in my strata because I care. I go outside and pick up litter because I care. I would suggest to you that millions and millions of women on planet Earth do that stuff, right? Because we're doing that stuff, and because that stuff is not valued in material ways or legal ways or emotional celebration ways, it grooms us to be more vulnerable, right? Think of, we talked earlier about the whole life story in one of the other videos, that Jane and Joe are fraternal twins. They have their whole life story. All the moments in females' lives where we get less than the males grooms us to be more tolerating of things that males don't tolerate. All the places I've lived in my life, and I've lived in many places, many contexts, almost never do I see the males in the neighborhood feeding the stray cats, feeding the birds, picking up the litter, worrying about the injured dog at the end of the street, watering the plants in their house, growing the kale outside, all of that stuff. And I wish, if you, again, I challenge you, there's books like this one, If Women Counted, from Marilyn Waring, a classic, and now there's a second edition. I think the second one is more If Women Counted, and it's a collection of scholars talking about how things have not necessarily changed in the last 20 years or since this first came out. She's a feminist economist, and she talks about all the ways that women care and how it means we're less strengthened. I'll give a very concrete example. If we took the story of Joe and Jane, born from the same vagina and in the same womb and in the same family, by the time Joe and Jane are 20, it's far more likely that Joe will have his own car. He's more likely, and I'm talking planet Earth again, I know some of you are going to say, I have a friend who has a car when she was 17, but in general, the boy is more likely to have his own car, know how to take care of his car, know how to fix his car, than the female. How does that groom females as a collective group? 1, the female is more likely to end up walking to the places she needs to get to. Therefore, she's more vulnerable to get grabbed off the street or get harassed on the street. 2, she's more likely to take a bus. While she's waiting at the bus stop or on the bus or getting off the bus, she's more vulnerable to be harassed or harmed than her brother, her twin brother, who has his own car. When you think of the Highway of Tears story, it's often women who had to hitchhike because they don't have their own car, right? So do you see how the big macro level of grooming sets girls up to be more harmed than boys? This is a beautiful book. Some social workers who work with victims of abuse were kind of like, ooh, economics. I don't want to know about economics. How does that relate to victims of abuse? If Women Counted and New Feminist Economics, this book, Scandalous Economics, talks about gender and access to resources and empowerment. Economics for Social Workers talks about social outcomes of economic globalization with strategies for community action. This is Valuing Care Work, Comparative Perspectives. Just riffing some titles for you. Again, just so you know, it's not just my own anger. Oh, Sally makes up all this stuff because she's angry. Yeah, I'm angry, but I've got tons of evidence for the patterns I'm wishing to talk to you about. The Violence of Austerity. Social Work Under Pressure. Those are titles you could Google, and there's 1,000 others that can show you how the whole economic system, the whole capitalist, patriarchal, intersecting system situates females to be groomed, to be harmed. We began earlier in the semester talking about the C-19 crisis. It's not a total random fluke of the universe that when we start to talk about who has died from C-19, we're going to discover more Black people, poor people, isolated, alone, oppressed people, maybe more Indigenous people, more people living in dumpy elder homes have been sick or died from COVID-19. You're also going to find a disproportionate number of females who have died. You're going to discover a disproportionate number of the females who were doing the care, the people doing the care work were female. I challenge you to go Google that and prove me wrong, but I don't think you're going to succeed with that goal. So our patriarchal, economic, capitalist system grooms us to be more vulnerable, to be harmed. So I wanted to say that today. Grooming, multiple layers of abuse. Patriarchy has set men up to feel they're authorized to judge, harm, impose upon and invade others. And continuums. Reflect on continuums and all the way things are not binary but are continuums when working with social work with victims of abuse. And again, thank you for showing up and caring about these concerns and trying to be the best person you can be, the best advocate and practitioner when working with social work with victims of abuse.